Let's have a look at compare documents in Bluebeam Revu. In a design review process, you'll sometimes find yourself needing to compare a current floor plan with an older version before you start marking up. Comparing documents can be handled a couple of different ways in Bluebeam Revu. And the first is what I call manual review, by taking advantage of two smart and simple features: split screen and sync. So here I've got two documents open in separate tabs. You can jump back and forth between the two and zoom in, pan around between the two documents. But we can speed things up a bit by clicking split vertical down here in the lower left corner. And what this does is it opens the two documents in separate windows, and I can manually zoom in one pane and manually zoom in and pan around in the other. Not bad, but a bit time consuming. So let's speed things up a bit by clicking on the sync button down here in the lower right corner. And when this is engaged, now you can see that when I zoom in and pan around in one pane, it does exactly the same in the other. I think you'd agree this is a pretty nice feature for speeding up a review process. So let's take things a step further by doing document comparison. Clicking on the document drop-down menu, click on Compare Documents. I can select which documents I want to compare, and here I'm just going to make sure that I have the original and the revision selected. Just go ahead and click OK. It analyzes the two documents, scans it for differences, and then creates this independent document that shows things with a cloud around them. You can see that it picks up not only in differences in things like wall locations and callouts, but also things like text and title blocks, and even images. And if we click back here in the original plan, you can see there was no logo down in the title block, but it picked up the difference here in the Compare Documents feature. So one more way we can compare documents is by overlay pages. And this is something you might want to do with something like structural review, where you've got a current architectural plan, structural engineer has sent you the drawing, and you want to do something that we might have done in years past with a light table, where if you're the same age as me or maybe a bit older, you use the light table to use your Mylar drawings to overlay architectural with structural. Well, this is the same idea, but it's automated and really simple to use in Bluebeam Revu. So I'm going to click on the document drop-down menu again, and we're going to use overlay pages. And here you can see it pops open this dialog box. And if I wanted to shuffle the order of what sits on top and what sits below, I could juggle back and forth with these buttons. But let's see here, I've got the floor plan and its color is red, and I've got the newer version with revisions showing in green. I can click modify and make some changes here if I need to with respect to how it appears in the compare or in the overlay document. And I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. Again, scans the drawing, creates a separate document, and does the same thing with document comparison, but this time it overlays them, showing you the differences. So again, it picked up that title block, which is a title block image, and here it's nicely showing the differences between the wall locations, with red being the older version, green being newer with the revisions, and anything that's the same is colored in black. So really nice, fast way to compare differences between documents, huge time saver, and I think what you're going to find that this is the step you want to take before you start getting into markups. So let's do that now. The markup tools are how we annotate drawings in Bluebeam Revu, and they can be found up here in the Tools drop-down menu under Markup. And they can be categorized as text objects, pen objects, lines, shapes, smarter tools like Cloud Plus, images, and flag objects. They can also be considered things like measurements in the form of length, area, and perimeter dimensions. And markups can also be considered hyperlinks to web pages and links to internal documents that might sit on the server. Let's have a look at how they work. So I've got a lot of examples on this page, and I'll just touch on a few. And the first one being text box. For this, I'm going to use the toolbar. Text box. You're prompted to draw a box, and then immediately start typing. What I type should be pretty self-explanatory. You draw a box and the text autofills. If I needed to revise the size of this box, simply grab one of the handles and stretch it, and you can see that the text autofill updates accordingly. If I needed to move this markup, I simply grab it and drag it around. If I need to rotate it, I can just gesture over the blue circle at the top, and you can see the rotate cursor. Click, hold, and drag, and it rotates. Now, either before or after you use a markup, you can control the preferences of the markup, and those are found up here in the prefs bar. For this text, I can control things like the font, the size, color, and the style. Keep in mind that these can be changed before or after you place the markup. Let's move on to a few more. Typewriter. Note, you've probably seen this one before in other PDF applications. Little pop-up. Callout. Let's have a look at this one. This time I'm going to click on the callout tool and I'm going to set the preferences before I place it. So, change the color of the line work. I'm going to change the font and change the size, the text, color of the text, and then you're prompted to point to the object you want to call out, place the body of text, and you can see that the extension line and the arrow are automatically placed. And you're done. Some of those freehand tools that I pointed out, like the pen, the highlighter is one of my favorite. Pick the color. Let's use pink. And in freehand mode by default, you can draw. And then the nice part is it auto-recognizes text so that you can just gesture over top of it, click and hold your mouse key and drag to select the entire body of text or just a portion thereof. The eraser tool is really handy when it comes to polylines and line work like this, where you just gesture over top of one of the lines, click on it, and it removes it for you. Line work. Up in the prefs, you can change the color, you can control the line style. So here I can make it into some sort of dash, and I can increase or decrease the thickness of the line, and particular line styles have dashes and shapes as well as text. If you want to create your own custom line style that includes text or objects, you can click on Manage, and you can walk through the process for creating custom line styles. Arrows should be pretty self-explanatory. Arcs. And I just want to point something out here that if you're in a pinch, Bluebeam can be used for simple drafting. Tools drop-down menu, Markup, Arc tool. And I'm simply going to add a door swing to this particular door slab. And then I can select both objects, and then I can group them. Right-click on them, group. And now it's one object, so that when it moves around, it sticks together. Let's continue on with a few more here quickly. And let's see, polyline should be self-explanatory. The dimension tool, this is worth spending a moment to talk about. I'm going to click on the measurement panel here, pop it open, and you'll see the scale category. Depending on the application that was used to generate the PDF that you're working on, it can have a scale. So if you've outputted it from something like Vectorworks, Revit, or ArchiCAD, it's more than likely going to have a scale. And it'll be noted here in these fields. This one is 1/4 inch equals a foot. You can change it if you need to. But if you have been sent a drawing that's not to scale, or doesn't have scale, you can click Calibrate, and you can walk through the steps to pick on and click on known entities that have dimensions on your drawing, and Bluebeam will automatically calibrate the scale for you. Pretty handy. So that said, once the scale is known or set, you can click on the measurement tools like dimension, length, and just click and maybe hold down that shift key to constrain the line either horizontally or vertically, and it's done. The rectangle tool is available to you, but quite often I just use the polygon tool, where I can freehand place a rectangle by clicking, holding, and dragging, and do the same thing to create a square. In this case, just hold down the shift key, and it constrains the size so that the sides are all equal. Same goes for the ellipse tool. Hold down the Shift key and constrain it so that it creates a circle. Polygon tool should be self-explanatory, as should be the cloud tool, and just know that every time you either have placed it or before you place it, you can modify the preferences. Cloud Plus is something I'm going to have a look at in the next document. We'll go a little bit deeper into this one. Here we've got an image that's placed. As mentioned, images are considered markups. This one's placed, and you can see that it's overlapping some of the data below. I could either resize it, or I can use a nice tool that's part of Bluebeam, and that is Image Crop. Click on the tool and just draw a rectangle around the region you need to see, and it automatically crops it for you. Pretty nice. So the sketch tool also relies on the scale of a drawing, and just to quickly show you how it works, tools, markup, sketch to scale, the rectangle. And when you start drawing, you can enter fields within width, height, and rotation to accurately place an object or shape to your preferred size. So that's a brief overview of a good chunk of the markup tools. And now let's dig a little deeper into markups with the Cloud Plus tool. So the Cloud Plus markup is a tool that we think you'll be using fairly frequently during something like a design review process with consultants. And this file that I have open has a few examples in place already. For instance, this one right here. You can see that it's comprised of a cloud object, some line work, and a body of text. You could manually build this in Bluebeam, or you can rely on the tool to do it in a few smart sequential steps. Let's have a look. I've got a wall here, and I want to place a window in it, or at least make sure that everyone else is aware that a window should be placed. I'm going to click on the Cloud Plus tool, and I'm going to draw a rectangle around the region. I'm immediately given a cloud, and I'm prompted to place the text. Done. In just a few clicks, it's placed. Now I want to modify the shape of it. I'm going to grab these handles, stretch it so that it makes it a little neater, and you can see that it's a little close to this markup here, so I'm just going to decrease the below size up here in the preferences. Gets a little cleaner. That's good. And I'm going to modify the text and insert 10-foot by 4-foot window. Just so everyone's clear on the size. Also note that you can change the preferences from the properties panel. So when the markup is selected, everything shows up here as well as up here. Here's a bit of insight. Change the subject of your markup to the discipline you're working in. For instance, I'm going to call this Interiors. Make a little correction with my capitalization there. And here I can change the appearance of the cloud object. I'm going to change its color to darker green. I'm going to give it a light green fill. And you can see what happened there. When I gave it some light green fill, it obscured everything behind it. But the highlight feature gives it a bit of transparency. Now I'm going to change the color of the line work and change the color of the font. Done. So in just a few easy steps, I've got a nice call out. And the beauty of this is if I need to call out more and more objects or aspects of this drawing, I can use this same tool over and over by simply copying and pasting it, or relying on what we think is a huge benefit of markups is the tool chest. And that can be found over here in the side panel. So popping open the side panel, this is where you'll find your recently used tools, as well as some preloaded tools that depend on which profile you have loaded in Bluebeam, as well as an area to create your own custom tool set, which we highly recommend. So as markups get created, they get placed within the recent tools, and this goes for the ones we've just placed and modified. It should be noted that every time you close Bluebeam, your recent tools will get cleared. So it's a good idea that if you like the callouts that you've made, that you drag them up into the My Tools set. This is a location where they can be temporarily stored until you create your own tool set. They're not going to be removed from the My Tools set until you manually delete them or move them to a different set. So let's have a look at how we can create our own custom tool set. And to do that, I'm going to click on the Tool Chest drop-down menu and click on Manage Tool Sets. I'm going to click Add, and I'm going to call this Interiors. Click OK, and I'm just going to place this on my desktop. So there's my Interiors tool set. You'll see a little lock on here. This is so you don't accidentally delete a tool set. Simply click on it, you get a check mark, that means it's unlocked. Now I'm going to drag something like this callout down into my Interiors set, and that's there. If I wanted to share this with some colleagues, I would first want to save it because I've placed that particular callout in there, and then I'd want to export it. And to do so, I just point to a location maybe that's on my server, and in this case, Dropbox, click Save, and now my colleagues can open up that location on the server and go to the tool chest and follow the instructions on Manage Tool Sets when they're prompted to import a tool set. And then that will be loaded in their own tool sets panel over here. So tool set is created, tool set is shared. Now we want to place those markups on the drawing. I'm going to navigate to a region in the drawing where I know we can use that markup again. Just close that prefs panel. And there's a couple ways in which we can place markups from the tool set. By default, this is set to draw mode. Click on the tool, draw a rectangle, and draw it just like you would if you'd first clicked on the Cloud Plus tool. You can see that it's remembered all of the preferences. Again, you can go in, modify things as needed, but it's remembered the line type, the line color, and the text. We can clean things up a little bit here. And let's just stretch that in a little closer. So the other way is to double click on the markup in the tool set. And this uses the preferences mode. And I simply drag it and drop it, and it remembers the exact same preferences that were used in the first place. And that might be somewhere down here. I can place it. And then I can just double click on it and modify the text. So you can see that the setting up of preferences and creation of tool sets when it comes to drawing review and markups and having those same tools for use over and over again is going to be a big time saver, and it's going to add a graphical consistency to your drawings. The big bonus at the end of the day, though, is when it comes to something like a design review meeting and having everyone with a list of tasks to do. And this is where we rely on the markup summary. So the markup summary is derived from the markups list. To do that, we're going to click on the markups button, and the markups panel pops open. And you can see some columns here. And these columns are related to the markups that have been placed already. Click on one of the markups in the list, and you can see that it gets highlighted on the drawing. Right now, the available columns are by subject, author, and date. And if you recall, when we were working with the markup for Cloud Plus, I recommended that in the properties, you filled out the engineer field by discipline. This allows for better sorting of your subjects. And speaking of sorting, if you want to sort by particular disciplines, we can turn that on here and say only show contractors' comments. Click on it again, and we can see all. If we wanted to add some columns, click on the Markups List dropdown, and let's add something like comments. Now we can actually see the text that's associated with each particular callout, And let's add one more for something like status. There we go. And you can see here that one of them has been rejected. So if you right-click on the status column, set the status, and I can say accepted. So this is a good way to go through your drawings and check to see what's been done. And if we wanted to send this to people, we can do so with the summary. Click on the summary drop-down menu and click on PDF summary. Here, if we wanted to revise columns by turning them on and off, we could do so. We could filter and sort if we needed to, but I'm pretty happy with the way things are set up right now. So I'm going to focus on output right now, and I'm going to set the style to table. Table is going to allow me to show little thumbnails. I like the medium size for now, and this is going to give me a list that shows these columns that I've already displayed. I'm going to click OK. It's going to generate it. It takes a minute or two, processes all of those thumbnails and the categories, and it creates a separate PDF that's appended to this document. I'm going to close a couple of these panels, and you'll see all of those columns are sorted out quite nicely. And you can see when I click on a markup, it brings me exactly to the location. Click on the pages. There's the appended PDF of the list, sorted by contractor. There are all the comments. So this is a pretty nice summary that we can now send to colleagues or consultants as a bit of a checklist for things to do. So that's a summary of markups and a markup summary. I think you'll find that moving forward for design review, this will be part of your process. And with that, it's probably a good idea to open this up to questions from our audience. Let's see what we've got.